Badly injured, CM Punk unleashes a brutal attack on Paul Heyman. In a scene straight out of a mafia movie, CM Punk snapped at WWE Backlash 2025 and unleashed an absolutely savage beatdown on Paul Heyman, and we're not talking a mic drop, we're talking medical attention level brutal. Heyman never saw it coming, and honestly, neither did security. What drove Punk to go full psycho mode? Was it years of betrayal boiling over? Or did Heyman just finally run out of luck and excuses? In this video, we break down the chaos, from Punk's unhinged assault to the stunned reaction from the crowd, the fallout backstage, and what this means for Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and anyone else dumb enough to stand in Punk's way. If you thought WWE Backlash 2025 was wild before, buckle up. It happened in seconds, but the impact could echo for years. Backstage at WWE Backlash 2025, the cameras had already cut away, the main event was over, and the crowd was filing out thinking the chaos had ended. But behind the curtain, something far more violent was erupting. CM Punk, cold-eyed, tight-jawed, and visibly shaking, cornered Paul Heyman near the production crates and snapped. Not in the dramatic, performative way we've seen in promos. This was real. Gritty. Ugly. And it left one of WWE's most powerful figures crumpled on the concrete floor, bleeding and barely conscious. This wasn't a storyline. This was an assault. And it wasn't just physical. It was personal. Deeply personal. In this video, we're not just replaying the incident, we're breaking down why it happened, how it escalated behind the scenes, and what this means for the WWE landscape going forward. You're going to hear what happened from the people who saw it. We'll walk you through the full backstory of CM Punk's turbulent relationship with Paul Heyman, from loyalty to betrayal, from respect to revenge. And by the end, you'll understand why this moment was not just shocking, it was inevitable. But there's more at stake than one man's grudge. This single act of violence could blow open storylines, locker room loyalties, and the delicate balance of power that Roman Reigns and the bloodline have maintained for years. It could bring Brock Lesnar back into a war he thought he'd left behind. It could change how WWE handles real-life rage when it breaks through the fourth wall. So buckle up. This is not a sanitized, polished recap. This is the raw, bloody truth about what went down when CM Punk declared war, not with a mic, but with his fists. And if you think you've seen CM Punk angry before, you haven't seen this CM Punk. Let's start with what happened that night, the moment everything broke. Sunday, May 4, 2025. Location, Las Vegas, Nevada. Event, WWE Backlash. Time of incident, 10:47 p.m., local time. What began as a night of high-stakes showdowns ended in a scene straight out of a crime drama. Moments after the main event concluded and the broadcast feed faded to black, CM Punk blindsided Paul Heyman in the backstage area. No build-up. No warning. Just a calculated, brutal assault that left Heyman battered, bloody, and barely responsive before medical personnel intervened. This was not a worked shoot. There was no bell. No crowd to cheer or boo. No official to separate them. Just the echo of fists, a sickening crack against metal, and Heyman's lifeless form on the floor. According to sources within WWE, security was not immediately present. By the time help arrived, the damage had already been done. Eyewitnesses describe a terrifying level of intensity. One backstage staffer, speaking anonymously, told us, "I've seen Punk angry. I've never seen him like this." This wasn't a promo. It was personal. It was surgical. Heyman reportedly tried to defuse the situation with words, but Punk wasn't interested in talk. He charged. The first punch landed clean. What followed was a flurry, a knee to the ribs, an elbow to the jaw, and a steel chair brought down with full force, once, twice, 3 times. Blood was visible. A camera operator dropped their rig trying to get out of the way. The exact number of blows? Unknown. The severity? Clear. Paramedics on site treated Heyman immediately and transported him by a stretcher. Initial reports suggest multiple contusions, suspected broken ribs, and a possible concussion. WWE issued a brief internal communication acknowledging a backstage incident without naming names or issuing a public statement. And CM Punk? He vanished. Witnesses say he walked away silently, breathing hard but without remorse. Security eventually located him in his dressing room, where he was described as calm but cold. No official detainment, no arrest, yet. But the ripple effects had already begun. Phones lit up. Management scrambled. The locker room went dead silent. So, what just happened? A man who spent years biting his tongue finally unleashed what looked like years of pent-up rage, and he chose Paul Heyman as the target. This wasn't a storyline twist. This was a message. Next, we go deep into the twisted history between these two men, and why Paul Heyman may have sealed his own fate long before Backlash ever started. To understand why CM Punk attacked Paul Heyman with such violent conviction, you have to rewind over a decade. Their story isn't just about business deals and wrestling angles, it's about trust, betrayal, and the slow, grinding corrosion of loyalty. What happened at Backlash 2025 wasn't a spontaneous eruption. It was the last chapter in a saga that's been simmering since the early 2010s. Back in 2012, CM Punk was the guy who dropped the pipe bomb. The anti-hero. The rebel. The man who turned his real-life frustrations with WWE into promo gold. And behind him? Paul Heyman. The genius. The strategist. The manipulative mastermind who saw something in Punk that the rest of the company didn't. They weren't just colleagues, they were allies. Co-conspirators. Heyman called Punk the best in the world. Punk returned the loyalty with unfiltered passion. On screen and off, it was clear, these two trusted each other. But that didn't last. The first cracks appeared when Brock Lesnar returned in 2012. Heyman, once Punk's confidant, gradually shifted toward Lesnar, the money machine. It was subtle at first, small alignments, backstage deals, shifting narratives. Punk was still the voice of the voiceless, but now he was voicing frustration alone. By 2013, the betrayal was complete. At Money in the Bank, Heyman turned on Punk mid-match, slamming a ladder into his back and handing the match, and the momentum, to others. It was brutal. Not just because of the outcome, but because it shattered what fans thought was real, a genuine bond. Punk didn't just lose a manager. He lost someone he trusted when everyone else in WWE politics had written him off. The fallout? Punk walked. Not immediately, but the seeds were planted. His eventual departure in 2014 wasn't just about creative differences or medical disputes. It was also about how trust in WWE's inner circle had become a joke. And Heyman, in Punk's eyes, was part of that machine. Fast forward to 2023, Punk's unexpected return. The prodigal son came back, but the house had changed. Roman Reigns sat at the top. Heyman was now the wise man of the bloodline. The same man who once whispered strategies into Punk's ear now played puppet master for the company's most dominant faction. And that burned. Did Punk keep it professional? Outwardly, yes. But the backstage murmurs told another story. Cold nods. No eye contact. Tense silence in production meetings. At Royal Rumble 2025, Punk was seen walking past Heyman without acknowledging him. At Elimination Chamber, Punk cut a promo about snakes in the backroom with microphones for tongues. No names were dropped, but everyone knew. Then came Backlash. Leading up to the event, there were hints. In the final promo before the match, Punk said, "You can only bite your tongue for so long before it bleeds." He wasn't talking about his opponent. He was talking about Heyman. The resentment wasn't gone, it was just hidden. Dormant. Waiting. And when Heyman reportedly confronted Punk backstage, perhaps to squash tension, Perhaps to remind him who really runs things. The dam finally broke. So was this attack premeditated? Possibly. Did Heyman see it coming? Not a chance. He underestimated the depth of Punk's anger. He forgot what it feels like when someone who's been holding it in for years finally lets go. And Punk didn't just let go, he exploded. This is more than a feud. It's a reckoning. What Punk did wasn't about getting revenge on a character. It was about punishing the man who, in his mind, started the unraveling of everything. The man who smiled in his face and sold him out when the stakes got too high. For Punk, this wasn't payback, it was overdue justice. Up next, we break down exactly what happened in the moment of the attack, a blow-by-blow account of one of the most violent backstage incidents in WWE history. 10:47 p.m. The broadcast had ended. The crowd was still buzzing. Backstage, crew members were packing up cables, rolling gear out of the way, and preparing for the post-show wind down. It should have been the usual controlled chaos. Instead, it turned into something else entirely. According to multiple eyewitnesses, the attack happened near the northeast corridor of the T-Mobile Arena, a dim, narrow space between the production truck loading zone and the locker rooms. Paul Heyman, reportedly heading toward Roman Reigns' private suite, was intercepted by CM Punk. The exchange started quiet. Sources say Punk stood in Heyman's path, arms folded, eyes locked. No yelling. No dramatic threats. Just two men who had once trusted each other, now face to face under harsh fluorescent lights. Security footage hasn't been released, but several backstage staff members confirmed that Heyman tried to de-escalate. He put his hands up, reportedly saying something like, "This isn't the time, Phil. Let's talk." But Punk wasn't there to talk. Witnesses say the first shot came out of nowhere, a hard right hook that knocked Heyman against a stack of flight cases. What followed was a blur. Punk closed the distance, grabbed Heyman by the collar, and drove him to the concrete floor. No theatrics. No hesitation. Then came the knees. Left. Right. Left again. Sharp, targeted, vicious. Not the kind you throw in the ring, these were the kind you throw when you want to hurt someone for real. A tech crew member nearby dropped his headset and ran for security. Others froze, unsure if they were witnessing a staged scene or something far more real. The sound of metal scraping broke the moment. Punk had grabbed a folding chair. He raised it once. Slammed it down. The sickening clang echoed off the concrete walls. He raised it again. Slammed it harder. A third time. By this point, Heyman wasn't moving. Blood was visible, reportedly from a gash above his eyebrow or near the hairline. A producer attempted to intervene, but Punk shoved him away with such force he reportedly fell into a nearby stack of monitors. When security finally arrived, about 20 to 30 seconds after the first punch, Punk stepped back on his own. No resistance. No fight left. Not because he was done physically, but because the message had been sent. He stood over Heyman, breathing heavy, staring down with a look one witness described as cold. Empty. Like he was already somewhere else. Medical staff rushed in. They stabilized Heyman, checked for responsiveness, and radioed for a stretcher. He was wheeled out with a towel covering his head, flanked by panicked personnel. Punk, meanwhile, was quietly escorted away, not in cuffs, not detained, just walked out like he'd clocked out of a shift. Within minutes, the locker room was on lockdown. Phones confiscated. Rumors flying. Some wrestlers reportedly refused to speak until legal was present. Others were visibly shaken, not just by the violence, but by the implications. If this could happen, what's next? For fans watching at home, none of this was visible. The show had ended. The crowd was leaving. But those who stuck around began tweeting about the commotion. Cryptic posts surfaced. One read, "Something bad just went down backstage. Real bad." Another simply said, "Punk snapped." That's all I'll say. In the hours that followed, pieces of the incident leaked out. By midnight, it was the #1 trending topic worldwide. But what made it so chilling wasn't just the attack, it was the precision. This wasn't a chaotic brawl. It wasn't a wild, out-of-control scuffle. It was a calculated hit. No wasted movement. No hesitation. One WWE employee compared it to an ambush you'd see in a mafia film, quiet, ruthless, final. And that's what separates this from anything we've seen before in WWE. This wasn't about showmanship. There was no performance. No lines delivered for a camera. CM Punk didn't want a viral moment. He wanted a reckoning. He didn't want the fans to see it. He wanted Heyman to feel it. Next, we turn to the people who did see it, and the moment the audience realized something had gone horribly, horribly wrong. In the arena, none of it made sense, at first. The final bell had rung. The fireworks had blasted. Roman Reigns stood tall. CM Punk had taken a tough loss but walked out of the ring like a professional. The crowd began to exhale, shuffle out, check their phones, post reactions, and line up for merch. It was supposed to be over. But something was off. Fans near the ramp noticed security bolting down the aisle toward the backstage curtain, not walking, running. Stagehands whispered into headsets and sprinted in opposite directions. One production camera was abruptly pulled off its stand and hauled backstage without explanation. This wasn't routine. And seasoned fans knew it. Then came the sirens. Not dramatic, blaring ones. But the tight, high-pitched squeal of medical staff weaving through the crowd in a panicked rush. A paramedic team slid past the commentary table, through the production pit, and behind the black curtain at full speed. That's when the crowd started to murmur. Something had gone wrong. Really wrong. The speculation lit up the arena like static electricity. Was someone hurt? Did a prop malfunction? Did a fan get involved? But the mood shifted from confusion to tension within minutes as news began to leak, not through official channels, but through whispers, texts, and tweets. People with backstage access or industry connections posted cryptic messages. It wasn't part of the script. Heyman's down. Real blood. Punk lost it. You could feel the silence settle. Not the silence of a boring segment. The heavy, anticipatory kind that fills the air when people sense something real has happened in a world built on fiction. Fans looked at each other with the same expression, wide-eyed, uneasy, unsure whether to cheer, boo, or leave quietly. Some started chanting CM Punk in confusion. Others yelled what happened, at ring crew packing up cables. No one got an answer. Then came the first blurry backstage video from someone in production. A flash of EMTs, a stretcher, and the unmistakable silhouette of Paul Heyman limp and bleeding. That clip spread like wildfire. Whatever people thought they'd just watched. It wasn't the main event. The real main event had just taken place off camera, and it left the WWE universe stunned, split, and suddenly very aware that the line between entertainment and reality had been crossed. By the time Paul Heyman was pulled from the floor, the damage had already been done. He lay motionless. Eyes half shut, his chest barely rising. Blood pooled near the back of his head. He didn't respond to his name being called. One medical staffer, kneeling beside him with a flashlight, checked his pupils and immediately radioed for a stretcher. The tone of that call said everything. This wasn't a storyline injury. This was a man in real medical crisis. Security cleared a 10-foot radius around the scene. CM Punk was long gone. Crew members stood frozen, some in shock, others arguing about whether to call local EMTs or handle it in-house. In the end, they did both. Paramedics from the arena's medical team arrived first, quickly stabilizing Heyman with a neck brace and checking for internal trauma. According to two anonymous sources inside WWE's medical team, Heyman was unresponsive for nearly a minute. When he finally opened his eyes, he couldn't speak clearly. Reports indicated slurred speech, a disoriented gaze, and trouble moving the right side of his body, signs consistent with either a concussion or possible neurological trauma. His breathing was shallow. His hands were trembling. He was immediately placed on a backboard, loaded onto a stretcher, and wheeled through the service tunnel to a waiting ambulance. The trip from attack to ambulance took under 7 minutes, but for those watching, it felt like forever. Medical staff offered no comments on site. WWE officials stayed silent as well, a calculated move, or a sign they themselves didn't fully know how bad things were. Heyman was taken to a local Las Vegas hospital for scans and observation. Rumors suggest CT and MRI imaging were ordered immediately to rule out skull fractures or brain swelling. No update has been officially released on his condition. Backstage, the mood was grave. Multiple superstars reportedly approached officials to demand clarity, not about creative direction, but about Heyman's health. Some assumed this was part of an elaborate new storyline, until they saw the blood. Until they saw the stretcher. Until they saw the fear in the eyes of the medics. Even in a business built on illusion, this was different. Heyman, love him or hate him, is a foundational figure in modern wrestling. And to see him wheeled out unconscious, bloodied, and broken, was a jarring reminder that the dangers of this world aren't always confined to the ring. Next up, the locker room reaction, who defended Punk, who was furious, and what this incident did to morale backstage. Backstage morale went from post-show buzz to total lockdown in under 10 minutes. When word of the assault spread through the locker room, the energy shifted hard. It wasn't anger first, it was disbelief. Most wrestlers thought someone was exaggerating. CM Punk? Sure, he had a reputation for being volatile. But attacking Paul Heyman? Sending him out on a stretcher? No one saw that coming. And that was the problem. The locker room split almost instantly into two camps, those who viewed Punk's actions as indefensible, and those who quietly said, he finally snapped, and they should have seen it coming. Among the first to confront officials, according to reports, was Seth Rollins. Eyewitnesses claim he demanded immediate disciplinary action, reportedly shouting, "We're not safe back here if that's allowed to happen." Rollins, long critical of Punk's return, didn't pull punches, not in promos, and clearly not behind the curtain. Others, like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, were said to be visibly shaken but tried to calm the room. Owens reportedly told younger talent, "This isn't about TV anymore. It's real life now. Stay out of it." On the other hand, a small but vocal group of wrestlers, especially veterans from the indie circuit, didn't outright condemn Punk. One anonymous source said, "Paul's made a lot of enemies. Doesn't mean he deserved that, but let's not pretend he's innocent." The room grew colder when those kinds of comments surfaced. Triple H, now overseeing creative and talent relations, was caught in the middle of the storm. He held an emergency meeting less than an hour after the incident, locking down phones, shutting down interviews, and demanding that no one say a damn word publicly until legal could assess the situation. But the damage was already done. Screenshots of private wrestler chats leaked. Tweets were deleted. Eyes were on every move. And hanging over it all was the growing fear, if Punk can get away with this, what kind of precedent does that set? Multiple younger talents reportedly requested individual meetings with management to express concerns about backstage safety. Meanwhile, legal advisors from WWE corporate flew in early the next morning to assess potential liability. And CM Punk? He didn't apologize. He didn't show remorse. According to reports, when asked what happened, he simply said, "I handled it." No further explanation. No drama. Just a flat response from a man who'd apparently made peace with his decision, even as the rest of the locker room reeled. One unnamed wrestler summed it up best, "This was never about just Heyman. Punk lit a fuse tonight, and I don't think even he knows how far it's going to burn." Up next, we dig into why Punk may have finally snapped. The internal war he's been waging, and the personal demons that may have exploded that night in Las Vegas.